Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So thank you all for being here today. The topic of today's clinic is Wikidata for Wiki Loves Monuments. And before I introduce our speakers, I'll introduce myself. I'm Lucy Hinney. I'm part of the Let's Connect working group, and I'm based in the UK. Bukola James and I have been working on this clinic together. So Bukola, a fellow member of the Let's Connect working group, has been doing a lot of the organisation and heavy lifting. So I'm very grateful to Bukola, who will be leading the next part of this session. And of course, you all know Jessica Stevenson, who's here to support us in her capacity as a Let's Connect lead. And Gorana joined us to share her screen, which we're very grateful for because we couldn't run it without that. So if I move on to the next screen, our speakers today, you might have spotted them in the chat already, are Eric Luth and Alicia Fagerving from Wikimedia Sweden. And we're delighted to have them with us today to talk about their experience with Wikidata and Wiki Loves Monuments, and to help us improve our own skills in those areas. If I can move on to the next slide, and just a reminder to mute if you're not currently speaking, that would be brilliant, thank you. Just for those of you who don't know Let's Connect is a peer learning program. It's operated as part of a joint community foundation initiative. We're here to have a good time, to make people feel comfortable and confident. And we think that the key of Let's Connect is that we all have something to learn from everyone and anyone, no matter the different experiences that we have. Moving on to the next slide, why we're specifically here today. Well, this is session 1 of 3, and we really hope that you'll be able to join us for all 3 of these sessions, and we very much encourage you to do so. In the series overall, we really hope that you will learn how to generate data, add data to monuments, and enhance data quality for monuments-related information on Wikidata. We want you to connect to Wikimedia Sweden and the Content Partnerships Hub for mentoring and support. And we're going to use the Ugandan case study to help you understand that particular instance and model this practice in your own work. So on the next slide, breaking that down into what we'll do today in session 1, today we're going to help you understand the building blocks of Wikidata. We're going to help you see the potential of using Wikidata for Wiki Loves Monuments by showing you parts of the Ugandan case study. And we're going to start putting this learning into practice with a couple of extra tasks for you to work on. In the chat, Jessica and I will be sharing links throughout. Jessica's already shared the Etherpad link. We will also share a link to the slides and to various resources as and when they come up in the session. If at any point you're lost or confused or have a question, put it in the chat and we will make sure that your question gets answered. The agenda for today, we'll start with the welcome and icebreaker, and we've nearly finished the welcome. We'll move on to the icebreaker with Bukola, then a presentation from Eric and Alicia. We'll then have a good 20 minutes for questions and answers from you, the audience. And then we're going to spend the last half an hour or so working on a practical exercise that Eric and Alicia have set out for us. Then we'll have a quick 5-minute closing session to set us up for session 2. So I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to pass over to Bukola, who's going to take you through the icebreaker. But I'll be here in the chat if you need to ask any questions at all. So thank you once again for being here. And Bukola, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Lucy, for that brief agenda review. And now we'll dig into the icebreaker for today. And I'll just be dropping the link to the Jamboard in the chat. Yeah, and then share my screen. Rana. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be very interesting 10 minutes, and I hope we all have like enough time to really get into this icebreaker. So I'll be showing you a little demo about what it looks like. So because today we are really looking at how we could improve monuments through the Wiki Loves Monuments campaign. And as we all know, the Wiki Loves Monument campaign usually runs from September, right? And a good way to really get you in the mood of how we are going to apply Wikidata or like use Wikidata to improve monuments is we want you to really just share a monument that means a whole lot to you using this Jamboard. So you can do that in two ways. Is either you drop in the name of the monument using the sticky notes on the first Jamboard by just clicking on edit, and then you insert the name of the monument. So let's say one monument that means a lot to me is the Esie Museum in Esie here in the North Central Nigeria. And what I'll just do is type the name of the museum on this Jamboard, sorry, on this sticky notes, and then click on save. And yeah, I'm trying to look for that now. But yeah, let me see. So you just use that by inputting the name in the sticky notes and then you save. Or you can do it in another way of just showing us the image of what that monument that means a lot to you looks like. So I've done an example here on the second part of the Jamboard. And to do this, what you just need to do is click on add image. And once you click on add image, the next thing you want to do is go to Wiki Common. So you go on Wiki Common, and I'll be dropping the link just in case we don't have that. So I'll drop the link to this in the chat. Yeah. So you go on Wiki Common, you look for the image of that monument that means a lot to you. And you can do that by using the search box and to look for the National Museum in Lagos. So you look for the name of that museum using this chat box, this search box. And once you've done that, you can then go over to just pick specifics. And for that, okay, it's not really giving me the direct, but then I had already gotten the link here. So once you go on Wikicommon, you search for the file URL and then you paste it in this link, and automatically it pops up the image of that museum that means a lot to you, and then you click on insert. So either ways, if you have this image on your let's say laptop, or like you have it on Google Drive or Google Photos, you can also just go directly by clicking on any of these links. But I will advise you make use of Wiki Commons, and then you click on insert. And once you click on insert, you see the image pops up, and you can then maybe just give us the name of the museum. Oh no, not, okay, so I'll write the name of the museum, and it is National Museum Lagos. And once you're done with this, you fix it here. So we have so many blank Jamboards where you can do these tasks, and it's just something to really get us in the mood. And we'll be doing this for 10 minutes. And your time has already started while I was trying to explain how you could carry out or participate in the icebreaker. So thank you. And if you have questions, I'll be attending to them in the chat. So it's two ways. You either paste the link from the sticky notes, write the name of the image, or you just go directly to Commons, you click on image, add image, you insert the URL, and there's a lot of space on this Jamboard where you can fix your image. So thank you, and let's see how we are really able to showcase monuments that means a lot to us, or that we want people to really know more about. So I'm still waiting for more responses on the Jamboard. And if you would like me to add that for you on the Jamboard, you can just drop the link in the chat, and then I'll try to add the image for you. Okay, I see someone adding Stefan Nemanja Monument. Belgrade, Serbia. Interesting to know. Okay, so Obi, what you are meant to do is make use of this Jamboard to showcase a monument that means a lot to you, and you can do that by either yeah. So you can do that by either maybe just putting the name of that monument using the sticky notes, and then you click on save, or you just go add the image directly from Wikimedia Commons by clicking on add image, and then you copy the link, the URL to that image on Wikimedia Commons, and then you add it on the Jamboard. It's very easy. So I hope that was very clear and you are able to really follow up. Okay, I see so many. Wow, this is beautiful. I'm seeing Museum of Veterinary Anatomy in Brazil. Okay, it's good to know that we have so many museums. And I see someone just pasted a name of the museum. And yeah, we also still have some very blank space where you can still put your images. Yeah, cool. Okay, I'll just help you adjust this. Okay, I see so many names. Okay, I'll drop the link to the Jamboard again in the chat, and I'm doing that already. And yeah, I see Abu Bakr drop a link, and I would search for that. Okay, copy. Wow, these are really beautiful museums, I would say. And yeah, so Lucy, could you let me know when my time is up for the starts?
Yes, I think we're just at time actually, although I did start a little bit later, so you've maybe got one more minute.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, so I would search for this URL that was shared by Abubakar in the chat. And to add this museum, you click on use this file and copy the direct file URL, and then go back to the Jamboard, and you can, yeah, we can still make. So I'll click here on add link and paste the link I copied from Commons, and here you have the image that was the image to the museum, and it's loading currently. And yes, I would add this here, and then just add the name of the monument. And let's see, what do we have here? Okay, I see this is in French. I would just copy the name as seen, and go back, and then just add the name by using the text icon and paste. So it's really not so difficult, and
So that's us just at time there, Bacola. Now we started about 5 minutes late. So Alicia and Eric, you'll have until the hour, but if you go over by a couple of minutes, that's okay. We can balance it out in questions on later Jamboard, but just to let you know.
Thank you.
okay. Yeah. So thank you, and over to you, Alicia. Thank you all for participating in this icebreaker.
Thank you so much for this lovely introduction. I hope everyone is ready to learn. Just very quickly, is my screen share on? I do hope it is. Perfect, thank you. I guess some of you might have heard my name or have met me already. My name is Alicia Fagerving, and I work as a developer at Wikimedia Sweden, the Swedish chapter of the Wikimedia Foundation. And with me today, I have a colleague who works with me, Eric. And we are here today to have our very first session focused on editing and improving Wikidata, and in particular, items related to cultural heritage. Our general topic, as you have heard, is Wiki loves monuments, and I know some of you who are here today are very interested and involved in organizing Wiki loves monuments competitions. But really, in this first session, we're going to learn skills that you're going to be able to apply to other thematic areas as well. So in short, what I am going to go through within the next 45 minutes. The basics of how data on Wikidata is structured, the connections between Wikidata and other Wikimedia projects, such as Wikipedia and Wikimedia Commons. Then I'm going to look at how items of geographical objects are structured, because that is the focus of Wiki loves monuments. So everything from archaeological sites to museums to castles to cemeteries, everything that you can find in the world around you, and how you can describe it on Wikidata. And I really, really hope that this will encourage you to get started editing. And the background of why we are here in the first place is some work that we at Wikimedia Sweden have done with data about cultural heritage in Uganda. May I ask Eric to introduce this project a little?
Thanks, Alicia, and will be a pleasure. So, hi everyone, and really great to see so many in this room, and that we are having this clinic at this point. As Alicia said, my name is Eric Luth, and I work as well for the Swedish Wikimedia chapter, and also increasingly with the initiative that we are running for we call it the Content Partnerships Hub. It might be a long and slightly confusing name, but it's really an initiative to find ways to get better as a movement on working with partners. It can be GLAM partners, it can be UN agencies, like agencies of the United Nations and many others, to work with them to get their content to the Wikimedia platforms. As part of this initiative, we're running a few different potential projects. And one of them is something that we call a help desk. And this help desk is a structure that, or maybe call it a structure that everyone can reach out to and request support from. This support can take many different kinds of forms, but the basic idea is that someone wants to do a project that includes working with partners to get content to the Wikimedia platforms. But they don't have the technical capacity. They don't. You might not know, how to solve some legal issues or advocacy issues, or whatever it might be. Then you can reach out to this help desk and request support. And we have given quite a lot of support to different projects during the year that we have been running this. We have supported some medical projects with uploads of medical content to Wikimedia Commons. And also quite a lot of support to Wiki Loves Earth organizers to make sure that they have kind of connected the campaigns to Wikidata. But also one project that we did earlier this year together with Wikimedia user group in Uganda was to add the list that Uganda had in, and this is something that Alicia will explore a bit more in detail later on, but we gave them support so that they could kind of go from having Wikipedia lists to a Wiki Loves Monuments campaign running through Wikidata on Wikimedia Commons. So what I want to say is, with this is that if you have a project that you want to do, you want to run, but you feel like there's one part of the project where you don't have the technical capacity or technical knowledge for something else, then feel free to reach out to the help desk and the hub initiative. I'll share the email addresses that you can reach out to in the chat, and we'll make sure that it's in the Etherpad as well. But this help desk function is really a way to give everyone in the movement the support that they might need in order to carry out content-related projects. So look forward to having more of you reaching out. And with that, I think that I will hand back again to Alicia to explain a bit more in detail what we did together with our project.
Thank you. That was a very good summary. The situation is like this. For a very long time, the lists of monuments available for photographing in the Wiki Loves Monuments competitions in Uganda only existed as lists on English Wikipedia. And editing those lists is not very easy. For example, if you want to add the geographical location of this monument, then you have to, well, edit this page. You can't even do this with visual editor, so you have to, oh, I think my computer actually froze when trying to switch to the wiki text mode, which I think says something. Yeah, this tab completely crashed. Yeah, it crashed when I tried to. So it says something about how easy and user-friendly that was. Yeah, that's a very good example. But actually close it. Yeah, I can. That was a bit scary. I thought my whole browser would crash. But when you have a list of monuments on Wikipedia, that means that only editors of that language version of Wikipedia can edit it. It's a bit weird. I can hear some voices in the background, which makes it harder for others to improve those lists. When you instead have Wikidata items, then they can be multilingual. I can switch my interface language to, for example, Finnish, and I will see all the information about the monument in Finnish. So even if I don't speak the language of the list very well, I can still see the item and understand what it's about, and I can improve it. And in this year's edition of Wiki Loves Monuments, the Ugandan community is using a Wikidata generated list. This table on Wikimedia Commons looks just like the list on Wikipedia, but it has the advantage of being generated automatically from data on Wikidata. So when someone improves an item on Wikidata, regardless of what language they prefer to use, this list will be automatically updated. So I know that a lot of people who want to start editing Wikidata are not sure about what sort of items are allowed to exist on Wikidata, because if we are Wikipedians, then we know that Wikipedia has some relevance criteria. In order to write a Wikipedia article about something, you have to prove that the topic of the article is actually special and relevant in some way. However, on Wikidata, the notability criteria are much more inviting. The official guidelines, which you can read about on the notability help page, say that an item has to represent a clearly identifiable conceptual or material entity that can be described using serious and publicly available references. And what this sentence, which sounds a bit formal, actually means is that, well, a clearly identifiable conceptual or material entity. So any sort of building or castle or lake or book or artwork or person that is described in a serious source. For example, a cultural heritage register, such as the Cultural Heritage Register published by the National Museum of Uganda. That means the item is notable for Wikidata. And thanks to these notability criteria, the Wikidata community has been able to create many hundreds of thousands of items about cultural heritage objects that do not have their own Wikipedia articles. And since we are already talking about the relationship between Wikipedia and Wikidata, we should also mention that one of the purposes of Wikidata is to work as a hub in which Wikipedia articles in different languages are connected. If we look at, if we look, for example, at the Wikidata item of Stockholm, I obviously have to search and finish now because I have something here in front of my interface that makes it impossible for me to click. We can see that we just have one Wikidata item for Stockholm, and we have all these links to the Wikipedia articles in a lot of languages. And the other way around, in a Wikipedia article, we can find a link to the Wikidata item. And of course, if a Wikidata item does not have a corresponding Wikipedia article, then it will not have site links to Wikipedia. Wikimedia Commons, the platform on which the participants in our competitions upload their photos, is also linked to Wikidata. We can look at a category, in this case of a monument in Uganda. And we can see that it also has a link to its Wikidata item. Crying out loud. And we can see a separate section for links to multilingual sites, that is, in this case, Wikimedia Commons. I have mentioned that Wikidata has the great advantage of providing a multilingual interface. And this is also something you can see when you edit Wikidata items. Every Wikidata item has what we call terms, that is, labels, what its name is, and a very short description. And these are available in a lot of languages. We can see that this item only has a label in English, and it has descriptions in English and Arabic. And another aspect of the multilinguality is that if you do have labels in many languages, then you can use any of these labels to search on Wikidata. I can search for the Finnish name of Stockholm, and I can find it, even though my interface language right now is in English. So this is why it's valuable to translate the labels and descriptions to many languages, because that makes it easier for people to find the items, regardless of what language they use. We also have the concept of aliases, which are under the also known as header. And when we add an alias here, then that means that label can also be used in the search engine. So again, make it easier for people to find it. And a little quirk, a little technical quirk of Wikidata is that we cannot create multiple items that have exactly the same label and the description pair. Which languages you see here, the languages that I see here are determined by the Babel template that I have on my user page. You can read more about it on the help page. If you add a Babel template to your user page, then you can determine which languages you will see and be able to easily edit on Wikidata. Also something that is not very user-friendly or easy to discover. When we look at our monument, we saw that it has a bunch of statements such as instance of, image, country, located in the administrative territorial entity, and so on and so on. The properties that are available are really, there are really quite a lot of them. There are right now over 11,000 properties. You can find a whole list on the list of properties help page, but obviously you don't have to learn all of them, because if you just work in one thematic area like buildings or people or artworks, then you will only need a rather small subset, and you will quickly learn which properties are available and useful. The best way, of course, as always, is to search on Wikidata, either trying to find a property using a keyword, or by looking at items that are similar to those that you want to work on. For example, look up the item of the biggest museum in your country and see what properties are being used there. The most important property, one that you should always add to a new item, is instance of, because it says, what is this thing? As you can see in this example, any statement can have multiple values, and a helpful tip is that you should always be as specific as possible. So if you know that a museum is an art museum or a natural history museum, then you should add that specific instance of, and not just museum. But of course, sometimes you are not able to be very specific, and then it's okay to use a higher level value on the instance of statement, because other users sooner or later will find it and improve it. Now, obviously, we want to say where something is located. There is a property country, where you say in which country it is located. And then there are two quite similar properties located in the administrative territorial entity. And here you add like region or municipality or whatever the equivalent in your country is. Whereas the location is for places that are not an administrative unit or entity. And of course, in different countries, there might be different practices, different ways of doing that. And you see that I actually clicked on this property and went to its page in order to read and look at the description of it to understand better how it should be used. And that is something that you can always do if you are unsure of what the scope of the property is or what the best way to use it is. You will also note that every property, just like every item, has a talk page. And especially in the case of properties that are used a lot, there will probably be quite a lot of discussion where people talk about edge cases and best practices and try to agree on how to best use this property in different thematic areas. So if you are curious about it, there is always a lot to read. And then, of course, there is the coordinate location statement, which is very powerful because it makes it possible to find this item on the map. If you want to add a coordinate location statement to an item, you can either go to your favorite online map service and figure out how to copy the coordinates from there, Or here is a tool that I personally like a lot that provides you with a little scrollable map where you can easily find and copy the coordinates of whatever you find in the map. We were talking about buildings, which is a lot of monuments really, and there you can find properties such as inception, that is the year when the building was built, the architect, the architectural style. You can even say what street the building or whatever is located on, because a lot of important notable streets do have their own Wikidata items. You have a property called made from material. If you want to say that a church was built from stone or wood. And again, the best way of discovering them is looking at existing items of interesting objects, and then simply copying the structure that you find there. Now we are talking about cultural heritage monuments. So something that comes up often is that you want to indicate what sort of protection this monument is under. And every country has their own system. In many countries, there are even regional systems or different systems for different types of cultural heritage. The property heritage designation is used for exactly this purpose. Now you can see that when I am on a page of a property, then I can scroll down and I can find usage examples. So I can see that the Eiffel Tower is a monument historique inscrit, which is a French name for an item on a particular heritage register. We obviously have an item to indicate that something is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And a lot of countries really have items for their own classification systems. In Uganda, we do have National Cultural Site of Uganda. And we can see that it is a subclass of a heritage site. And if there are no such structures on Wikidata for the monuments in your own country, then a first step to cleaning up and organizing the heritage data would be to look up what systems, what levels of cultural heritage protections exist and create Wikidata items for them. Some countries have this sort of heritage registers published openly, and you can look them up on the internet. And in some cases, they will have unique identifiers for their monuments. For example, a country might assign a unique identifier or ID number or whatever to every monument in their cultural heritage register. And then you can use that ID number to look at that monument on your country's cultural heritage website. And we have a bunch of properties on Wikidata in order to link the Wikidata items with the external websites of the cultural heritage registers. There is a template. There is a template that is really a very big table, which attempts to collect all of them. You can see what countries are represented. I'm going to look at the ID from Serbia, because I know we have someone from Serbia with us here. The Cultural Heritage Monument in Serbia ID. And in this case, we can see this is just an ID number. It's not clickable because there is no external website where you can look at it. But for example, in Latvia, if I remember correctly, this is clickable. So by following this link, we can go to the official Cultural Heritage Register of Latvia to find this monument. And again, if there is such a website in your country with IDs, which has one page for every monument, and there is no Wikidata property that links the Wikidata items to that website, you can always ask for such a property to be created. And yeah, here is an example of the identifier I showed. We have an external identifier property. We add it to the Wikidata item. And yeah, here you can see that it has heritage designation. It is a national architectural monument of Latvia. We even have the start time, that is the date when that church was added to the National Architectural Monuments Register. And we have the Cultural Heritage Register ID. Something that comes up quite a lot when I help people add Wikidata is that people are a bit scared to create items. Like, what happens if I create an item of something that already exists, just has a slightly different name, so it doesn't come up in my first search? Well, that happens. Honestly, that happens quite a lot. It happens to me. It happens to everyone who creates tens of thousands of Wikidata items. It is something that will happen to you sooner or later, and you definitely shouldn't have two items about the same thing. But if it does happen, you can merge them so that they are put together into one item. There is a setting in your preferences where you can enable a gadget that makes it much easier. You just do 2 clicks on the item that you would like to merge with another. You indicate which is the duplicate item, and then they become one item. So this is not something you have to be very, very afraid it will happen. And finally, I would like to spend just a couple of minutes on Sparkle, which is another thing that I think people are a bit afraid of, because Sparkle is a query language that you can use to search on Wikidata. And when you have learned Sparkle, then it's the most amazing thing ever, because it is insanely powerful. You do not need to be a programmer to learn it. What you can do is start with the examples button. And there are really a lot of examples. I'll take the first one, which is cats. That is, find all Wikidata items of cats. I will run it. And I can see that there are over 200 cats on Wikidata. And let's look at this query really quick. What does this code actually say? It says, give me, maybe a little bit bigger. It says, select, so give me all items and their labels, where the following conditions are met. The item has the property P31. I hover over it and I see, okay, P31, that's instance of. The item has an instance of statement with the value house cat. And here is a little snippet that gets the label in the language of my interface. And if the item does not have a label in the language of my interface, then default to push. So let's say how I can modify this query, because modifying queries is really the best way of learning how they are structured. Let's say I want to find all churches. So instance of. I now press Control space, which gives me a little search engine. So I don't have to look up the Wikidata ID of a church. I can simply church building. Yes, perfect. Now, if I wanted to run this query, then my computer would freeze, because we do have a lot of churches on Wikidata. So I'm going to add another criterion. I want to find all church buildings in Serbia. So I add another line. I say that the item should have a country statement. It even says press Control space to give me this little helping search country. That is P17. And I wanted Serbia. It searches for a moment, and I get over 1,000 results. And then I can think, what other properties do monuments have? Well, they might have coordinates. So I say, give me also coordinates, coordinate location. And well, in this case, I don't want churches with a specific coordinate location. I want to see all of those churches' coordinate locations. So I assign this the value of this statement to a variable. And I also say, show it to me, because everything that is in this line It's show me these things. Give me the item ID, give me the item label, and add another column for coordinates. Let's see how many people. We can see that now the result is smaller because it only shows me the Serbian churches that do have coordinates. And here I can even switch to another view. Instead of a table, I want to see a map. Here they are. I can immediately see that some of the churches that have country Serbia have coordinates that are in a different country. So something is wrong. Either their country statement is wrong or their coordinates are wrong. So I can click, I can go to the item, and I can examine what's wrong somewhere here and improve it. Someone who actually speaks Serbian could do it. But say I want to find all churches that do not have coordinates because I want to find items where I can add them. Then I simply put this statement in. Minus, and now I have a list of 500 churches in Serbia which need coordinates. So now I have something to do for the rest of the evening or the week. We are at, it's about 6. So I think, again, I'm going to show some more examples from the example list. Looking at them is how I learned to use Sparkle. So look at these examples and modify them, change country, change statement, and try to find things that are interesting. I just very quickly started a query to find streets in France that do not have a city. So this is a very good, just a couple, only 12, also something to quickly work through and improve. Thank you. That was a very hopefully exhaustive overview of the things that you need to know in order to start understanding and editing Wikidata. Really.
Okay, thank you so much, Alicia. Like you said, that was like a very good summary and quite extensive, even though it's a summary. Okay, so just to really get everyone asking questions, because I know we all have a whole lot of questions to ask. And I have tried to like drop the link to the Jamboard, but then let me just share my screen and why I dropped the link to the Jamboard so we see the questions that Alicia could maybe provide more clarity to. And yeah, so if you could, Lucy, could you kindly just drop the link to that?
The
to
question Jamboard. Absolutely. Bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I believe you all can now, like, you can see my screen, and yeah, we have this Jamboard just to really help us get to really think about what questions we have and what has been very interesting as a part of your learning for this session. So to go over some of the comments, I see some very interesting ones, and it said, happy to learn that monuments can also have data page. And that is quite interesting to know. And also, I also see a very good comment that says, great Sparkle tutorial. Yeah, I think that's a very great and quick Sparkle tutorial. And then to go over the questions so that Alicia could provide more clarity too. So I see a question on how do we get to know the list of monuments that are not there in Wikidata? So should I go over each question while you provide answers to them, or like go over all the questions? Which is best, Alicia?
I would love to answer this question about the monument list because it is a very, very good question. In the case of Uganda, we had the lists on English Wikipedia, and the source of those was the information provided by the National Museum of Uganda, if I remember correctly. And I used a program that is called OpenRefine, which makes it possible to really quickly look through, say, a spreadsheet of data and look up the names of those monuments on Wikidata, because obviously it would be very hard to just paste the name of every monument in Wikidata. If you just have a small list of data, then I guess you can do that. But if you have a couple hundred monuments, that's not realistic at all. And for some countries, we have thousands or even tens of thousands of monuments. OpenRefine is a very powerful program for working with large amounts of data and looking it up on Wikidata. And this is why in session 3 of this series we'll be presenting it and showing how I use it in my everyday work. But there is also a second layer to this question, which is why I like this question a lot. In the case of Uganda, we had the list on Wikipedia. Okay, so we could start with that. But not all regions or not all countries have their lists on Wikipedia. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know. Sometimes your country's Ministry of Culture or whichever public agency works with cultural heritage, they might have lists online, or they might have a database that is publicly available, and then you might use that as a starting point. You can also use OpenRefine to work with data from external sources. Sometimes the public agency might have a list that is not available online. And well, then you can always ask them to share. You can explain the benefits of putting the information online on Wikimedia platforms so that more people can learn about the monuments and find them. And I know that different countries are at very different stages of their open data journeys. So this will be very, very different depending on.
Thank you, Alicia. I know you have a whole lot of explanation to do because, like, And I also look forward to being part of the third series where we get to use the open refine. So just to go over some other questions quickly, I see a comment that says the limits of Wikidata searches remain English, and the codes for those who don't speak English, it could be complicated. I think what the person is really trying to say here is that most of the codes are in English, and then for those who are working on language Wikipedia, it might be difficult. So, what can you say about this? That could be like a solution. Is there a solution to this?
Well, I think the best solution would be for more multilingual users to start editing Wikidata and translate the labels and descriptions to the local languages. It is a real shame, for example, that the data about monuments in Uganda is only available in English. That is a shame, but I know that this is the case for many countries where their very important local languages are not represented on the Wikimedia platforms. So, well, the long-term solution to this is to involve more community members who can contribute with their local knowledge and linguistic skills to make this data more complete and more multilingual.
Okay, thank you for that. And I find that very useful. And just to drift a little away from the Jamboard, I see Eric just dropped a comment and he's talking about adding, okay, he said something about monumental lists as well, that this is why it is important to build partnership with your national museum or similar organization in your country. And he's also saying something around we are trying to support, for example, okay, I think the translation just moved me out of that. And I don't know if Eric could maybe give more background to this and why you think it is important to build this partnership.
Yes, I'd be happy to, Bukola, and I think I added maybe most of the background in the chat, but the reason for why we could give this support to Uganda in this case was that they had already built relationships with the National Museum in Uganda, so they had data that we could add to Wikidata in this collaboration. And of course, this is harder if you don't have the data, and sometimes it might be the cultural ministry or the National Museum or whatever in your different countries and regions that have this information, but they might not know the strength of Wikidata or the power of sharing information about cultural heritage through Wikipedia and the Wikimedia platforms. So of course, you can do a lot of this work manually, and also with the information that Alicia has provided, I think, greatly today. But it gets much stronger if you can get good data and good information, good lists from institutions in your own countries. And then in the second and third series of this learning clinic, then we'll try to show you how you can work with larger amounts of data, and also, of course, better data, because the more data that you have about the monuments, then the easier it will also be to use the information for example, for Wiki Loves Monuments, such as if there are coordinates, or if there is information about in which municipality or which region or whatever it might be that this is located. So the more data that you have, the easier it is to reuse the information. And often you can get this information from institutions in your countries. So if you want to support with how to start to reach out to institutions in your countries, then we're happy to support with arguments and context for this as well, because I know that this sometimes can be a bit tricky in different contexts. I hope this answers.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very, very useful. And yeah, so partnership is key for you to really get reliable access to the list of monuments in your various community or countries. Now, moving over to the next question on the Jamboard, I see a question about, in geolocator, is it possible to find coordinates from an address? And this question is for Alicia.
Thank you. Let's see. When I have an address, Then I prefer to work with Google Maps, since you can actually paste an address there. And then when you have your Google Maps map, then you can right-click on it to get the coordinates. So if I just have an address,
Sorry to interrupt you. Maybe I should stop sharing my screen so that you can maybe show practicals of some of this explanation. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
that is.
so I'll just say,
Let's thank
okay.
you, and go to my screen. Let's see if I go to Google Maps and say I will type in an address, and then I can right-click on it on the map and get the coordinates. When I click on them, it says on the bottom, copied to clipboard. So now I will go to the Wikidata sandbox item, which is like an item where you can make any sort of test changes. I will make a very quick edit. Then I can add coordinate location, and I will paste whatever I have. And here are the coordinates. And I will remove it because it's just the sandbox, and also that's where I live.
You just got a follow-up question, Alicia. Like, in what case is it then actually good to use the geolocator tool?
Oh, I love it when I can find, when I know visually where the thing is located. I'm going to show, I'll just go there. Why is it? Oh, I think the developer didn't pay for the. There was also an OpenStreetMap link here, but now it's disappeared. This is, for example, where I want to find the monument visually. I don't remember the address, but I know more or less where I am supposed to look for this church. And then when I place my cursor here with Control and a click, then I get coordinates here to copy and paste.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Just so that I see many questions relating to merging, and I don't know if you could maybe please go over the merging again, like just
Absolutely.
trying to,
Absolutely. When I'm logged in, I have the link to my preferences. And here, somewhere here, I have the gadgets. And the merge gadget is right here on the top. And then imagine that I am in a Wikidata item and I discover another Wikidata item that I think is a duplicate, and there really should be one item. After I enabled my gadget, I get a new menu choice here under More. And here I can paste the number, the ID number of the other item. And of course, now I'm not going to click on merge because obviously they are not the same item. But what this gadget does is that it means you don't have to manually move the statements from one item to another, and you don't have to like delete the first item. The one item gets emptied and it's made into a redirect. And these are things like you don't have to even think about. Again, everyone creates a duplicate at some point. Everyone finds a duplicate at some point. It sucks, but it happens all the time. And this is a convenient way of dealing with them.
Okay, thanks for that quick demo. Just to go over some other very great questions that I see in the Jamboard. So someone is asking, what if an item does not have an existing coordinate on map? So what would you suggest as an alternative or solution to this?
Okay, so it has no existing coordinates. So you can't see it on the map, I guess. You can't see it. It's not, yeah. Well, what would I do? If it's something where I can reasonably travel, then I will go there and I will get the coordinates with my phone, or I will try to estimate its position on a map. And this is also like looking at a flight photo, like a flight photo map like this might also be a good way of estimating where it could be. Yeah, this is tricky because like if it's in an area that doesn't have like distinguishing geographical features, then it can be hard to like find a particular tree. I know that there are some culturally important trees that are protected. It's like in the forest or something, then you can't really pinpoint in on a map. Unfortunately, the only solution, the only good solution would be to actually travel there and pinpoint it. But if that's not possible, then you will have to estimate like on a flight photo on a Google map or something like that.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. I see Eric also wants to add some comment to this.
Then I can.
Yeah, I just wanted to add again, like this is why it's again important to in the long term try to build good relationships with institutions that might have this knowledge. But then that's at the few occasions, even they might not have this knowledge. So I think that's also why it's important to kind of work with volunteers and try to crowdsource this information. Like something that we did in Sweden was to work with works of public art. But many municipalities in Sweden, like the lowest administrative region, they didn't have information about where the public art was actually located. So then we worked with volunteers and tried to engage, communities to go around and find this public art to make sure that we had this information. Because as as the person who wrote this sticker mentioned, it's actually really quite important or good to have coordinates, or at least in which location this object exists. So I think it's an important question, and one solution is to work with partnerships and institutions, and one other is to work with volunteers to try to get this information. And sometimes, as Alicia said, you need to actually go there physically to see where it is.
Okay, thank you. I think I also find your comment very useful. And I think Van might want to add some few words or like support to this question. Van, can you or me to speak? Van, are you there? Van Kamel?
Okay. You mean me? Okay. Okay, fine. Well, I have just a practical way to identify geocoordinates when you don't have an address. For example, I have been in Senegal, and there you don't have local roads. Well, you have a road, but you don't have a name. So then the best thing you can do is try to get an aerial view with Google Earth. you can have an aerial view. So then you could possibly locate the object from the aerial picture.
Okay,
yes.
is it
So,
something you can demo? Like maybe show us a demo?
but I see that Alicia is already giving an example.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of a particular area, but sometimes you do end up zooming in things a lot, like combining your local knowledge, what you remember, maybe you took some photos. It is unfortunately not always possible to be very exact. And again, trying to think about who might have this information. Is there, for example, a university that's done research on this area and on its history? Then they might have some more exact maps.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. And we are going over some other questions on the Jamboard. So someone says, can you share a link to the geolocator too? Okay, that's on the Etherpad, so you can find that there. But then I think Alicia is also trying to, yeah. So the link to that is on the Etherpad already for the template for cultural heritage properties. And we also have something around how to merge. So there is the procedure on how to add that gadget to your Wikidata. And we also have some tools that we mentioned, like the Open Refine and the geolocator. Now, I think we have really provided answers to all the questions that we have. And then there's one other question that says, when can a monument be considered a real monument recognized by the community? Okay, I find this very tricky, but then maybe Alicia could provide clarity to that question.
Yeah, again, there are two layers to this question. One is the layer of notability for Wikidata, and there the notability criteria are, as I mentioned, very allowing, very broad. If you can add like a house or a church or a work of public art, if it exists and if it is described in some sources. But then we have the layer of Wiki loves monuments. How do we determine which monuments are, well, as the question asker formulated it, recognized, a real monument recognized by the community? And this is something that the team organizing Wiki loves monuments has been thinking about as well. And the solution to that is to only include monuments in Wiki loves monuments if they are recognized by some higher authority, such as in the case of Uganda, the monuments on the list of cultural heritage shared by the National Museum. And that's why we have so many heritage designation properties and external identifiers on Wikidata. Before you organize Wiki loves monuments, if you've never done that before in your country, then you will have to find some ways to actually identify the real monuments. And referring to an authority who has actually worked on that it's not always a simple solution, because sometimes it's not easy to access those, but at least it's a solution that prevents the Wikimedia community from having arguments about what to include or not. So the idea of Wikilove's Monuments is that in every country where Wikilove's Monuments is organized, those monuments come from some sort of official list.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. I see Azogono hand raised. Could you kindly unmute to speak? And I think that will be the last question for this.
Oui. Oui. Vous m'entendez?
Just a note to listen to Constance in English. You can go to the interpretation button and listen to the English channel. Thank you.
Très bien. En fait, cette question-là, c'est moi qui l'ai posée. Et je constate que quand on parle généralement de monuments, on parle de trucs anciens. Alors que nous constatons que les pays en voie de développement, comme le Bénin, dans mon pays, il y a un monument qui a été érigé il y a de cela 3 ans, qu'ils appellent Monument de l'Amazone. En fait, c'est une place publique, mais c'est un géant monument, c'est le monument le plus haut du pays, qui a été érigé là de cela 3 ans. Et ça a été inauguré par le président de la République. Dans ce cas précis, est-ce qu'on peut prendre cela comme un monument, sachant très bien que la Tour Eiffel existait depuis des dizaines et des dizaines d'années, alors que le monument de l'Amazone existe à peine il y a de cela 3 ans. Merci.
Hey, yeah, thank you for sharing that with us, Azogono. And I think others could also maybe learn from some of this. Yeah, so sorry we have to go into the next part of this segment, and you can always do well to keep dropping your questions on the Jamboard, as you all know that this is just the first series out of the 3 series that we'll be having for this clinic. And so moving on to the second part of the Jamboard, quickly before we go into the practical, I would like Alicia to click on the yes. So now, very quickly, it will be useful to also get to share your thoughts around some of this question. And the first part says, how do you plan to apply what you have learned in this session to your work or project? And also, what additional resources or topics you would like to explore further? Because I believe we all now are really thinking about how we can improve monuments, make good use of Wikidata, as we have all known that there are several gadgets that we are not even exposed to, just like the merge gadget. So it will be very good to get your thoughts. You can do that directly on the same Jamboard for the question, or just kindly do that by using the chat. And this will be very quick, so we can go into the practical. Yeah, so you can always maybe start dropping your thoughts around some of these questions. So I think one thing for me is how I really plan is, I think I'm now seeing a whole lot of other places where I could actually get coordinates from. And I see the geolocator too, which could be very, very useful. And also something around how to run queries on Wikidata, which we would all be going into very soon. And yeah, I also see great questions in the chat, and I would like this to be very quick. And if you would kindly just drop your thoughts around this point, how do you plan to apply what you've learned in this session to your work or project, especially for those of us that are thinking of participating in the Wiki Loves Monuments campaign? So what do you find very useful for this session that could improve your work in your community? And also thinking around additional resources or topics you would like us to explore further in our subsequent series. I think that would also be very useful for both Alicia and Eric to really come up with great, super presentation for our subsequent series. Okay. Yeah, so we can just keep dropping this on. Okay, so you can just keep dropping your thoughts on the Jamboard. You can always do that even after the next tasks that we have. And now I'll be passing over the virtual mic finally to Alicia to coordinate the practical session. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see that you've already added some very interesting comments. We're already using the improved list in Uganda to send volunteers to capture photos of monuments. That is amazing. I am really, really, really happy that the work we've done is actually useful. And okay, we're talking about monuments that don't have photos. And with the help of Wikidata, you can find monuments that do not have a lot of information. You can improve it. In the Etherpad, there is a headline tasks for participants, which are obviously some suggestions. I have collected a number of Sparkle queries that demonstrate very simple structures you can use in the query interface. Find interesting things. You are welcome to create your own queries on the basis of these to find things in your own countries. And you are welcome to start editing Wikidata with the basis of what you see as a result of these queries. Let's look at the first one. How can I find items that have a country statement that have an image on Wikidata so I can see what this is, but they have no instance of statement? That is, there is no statement saying what this is. In this particular case, I'm looking at items that have country Uganda, that have an image, and that do not have an instance of statement. Here's an example. We have a monument. Well, I even said this. I can know it from the label and from looking at the picture. This is a monument, but it doesn't say this anywhere as structured data. So I can add a statement. Wikidata even helps me because Wikidata knows that instance of is the most important statement and it's missing. So, yep, and here it is. And I can add it. Or in the query, I want to look at another country. For example, Nigeria. I know there's people from Nigeria here. I can look it up and see what this query gives me. There's much more results. For example, here is a marketplace, I guess. So I can look it up and add it. Some other countries, let's say I press on control space in order to get this little search bar. Serbia. Even more results. Let's have a look at another example. This query says items in Uganda that have instance of cultural property. Cultural property is a very, very high level definition for anything that is a cultural heritage monument. When we work with importing large amounts of data about cultural heritage, then we are sometimes not able to determine, we are not able to look at every single label on the list and set the correct instance of, especially if it's a list of thousands of monuments, or if it's in language we don't speak, then we set instance of to cultural property. But as I mentioned in my presentation, you should always be as specific as possible when setting an instance of. So here's a list of items in Uganda that have instance of cultural property. And there is, for example, let's see, this is, I can even see from description, this is a waterfall of some sort. So I could change it here. And again, here I can change the country and look at things in other countries that also need it. And we also have something for people who like working with geodata items, in this case, church buildings that have coordinates, but do not have country statement. Just running it, it's going to be a bit slower because it's looking for items all around the world on all of Wikidata. And there is actually a very small list. I look at the first item. Oh, well, that's actually a bit hard. Yeah, that's maybe not such a good example. But yes, here's one that even has a geographical location in its description. Oh, and we can see that someone has added a country. Perfect. So yes, now we all have a couple minutes to look at these queries, modify them, search for different kinds of things in different countries, and start editing. And of course, I will try to have the keep an eye on.
I noticed in the chat, Alicia, that Mohammed has asked Eric about how to change a country in a query from one to the other. Would it be worth showing that? I'm not sure if there's other people in the room who would find that useful, but I just wondered, because it's a practical question, we have how to change that query, if that might be worth showing.
Yeah, and a link to the query you are running currently. I'm not sure which query that would be, because
I think it is the cultural property. That's when Mohammed asked the question.
Yes, because I didn't catch it live. Let's see. This is the query for cultural properties. Here is the country statement. I remove Uganda's ID. I press on Control Space so that I get a little search bar. I search for Ghana. I run it. And there are actually no results for this one. But I can also do the same with the first one. Replace Uganda with Ghana. That will be items that have an image but no instance of. There are a number of results. We have some items that could be improved, and I am pasting the link here. I'll just put a change so that it actually shows up. I'm also looking at the Jamboard. And here is a comment from someone. I will further develop my PyWikibot script to automatically add coordinates and images to Wikidata from Wikimedia Commons, Wikitext, and amend SDC depict statement. This is an amazing comment for those who
Yeah, it's coming from me. Yes.
Yeah, I guess, and yeah. I love it. Thank you.
Okay, so what I do, I'm currently look into the wiki text, and in the wiki text there are sometimes the location of the object as a template. You can get the geocoordinates automatically from there, and then lots of well, in Belgium we have some templates in Dutch, French, and also for Brussels. Where the national or the regional ID of the heritage building is mentioned as a parameter. So if I extract that parameter and then I look at the item into Wikidata, I can get the Wikidata item that I can add into the depict statement. And if the image is not already a picture in Wikidata, I can automatically add the picture. So within one run of the script.
I love it. I just have to warn you about like the location templates in Wikitext on Wikimedia Commons. They are usually created based on the EXIF data that the camera saved, and like I have a very good phone, but sometimes it's coordinates, they're just weird. Like it might be just my weird phone, but I don't trust the automatic coordinates from my phone. I've learned that the hard way.
Just to
I'm aware.
No problem at all. Just to say to everyone, we will be concluding the practical exercise at 5:55 UK time, so we've got about 6 minutes, and then we'll do a brief checkout. Although because this is session 1 of 3, we will have time to revisit these in future sessions. And it's great to see you also engaged. But just to highlight that, if anyone's worried about running over.
Yes. I see another comment. In the Jamboard, we can document a monument that no longer exists because, for example, it has been destroyed in a war. That is unfortunately the case. I am currently working with cultural heritage data from Ukraine, and there is unfortunately a large number of monuments that have a lot of photos on commons that no longer exist. This is heartbreaking, but it also shows how important it is to document the cultural heritage around you while it's still possible. It would be great if someone could read out the comments that are in French. I'm not looking at you, Eric.
Sorry, I think Jessica sent me a message and referring back to the question from Asok Bonon in Benin, I think, and it was about if something can be considered a monument even though it's just a few years old. And I tried to reply in both French and English, just saying that this might be a different depending on contexts and what the local community thinks. But for example, in Sweden, all church buildings are considered to be monuments no matter when they are built. So I sent a link to an example of a church in Sweden that is only like 20-25 years old, but it's still seen as a monument because it is a church. So this will be varying a bit depending on context and the local community. So I hope this answers your question, Asobono.
Yeah, because that is why it was a very good decision of the Wiki Loves Monuments organizers to say, we work from lists compiled by some authority. Because if the Ministry of Culture says, here is a list of religious cultural heritage monuments and all churches are on it, then we don't have to argue, is this church old enough and special enough to be included?
Do you want Alicia maybe also to, so Geoffrey asked earlier about, I mean, the automatic, the list that we helped Uganda do with based on Wikidata, like there are a few photos that are now on Wikimedia Commons, but that don't appear in this table. So how does this work? Like, how do you make sure that a photo that is now on Wikimedia Commons also appears in the automatic table?
Yeah, you have to add it manually to the Wikidata item. I'm going to work on this item of a monument in Uganda. I'm just going to remove this photo and pretend that it never existed. Then I go to Wikimedia Commons. I look for a good photo. I copy its file name. I go to the monument item. I add a statement. Oh, it even suggests image, or I can just search for image. Or if I remember the ID, I can type in the ID, but I don't need to remember that. I can just type in image and paste in the file name. And I just want to open, yes, here it is, the monument list. This list only shows the photos that are added as image to the Wikidata item. And also another thing about this list, it is normally updated automatically by a bot. I think, I don't know how often, maybe a couple days or something like that, but you don't actually have to wait for that. You can always click on manually update list. This might take a minute or so, but then the list will be overwritten using the recent data from the Wikidata item.
Thank you so much, Alicia. And
Is
we've
it
got
okay if I ask a quick
Yeah, I was going to
follow-up
say,
question?
Jeffrey, if you ask your follow-up question, then we'll close up.
Yes, thank you, Alicia. So, Alicia, if you look on the list, item number 11,
Yes.
yes, that one. So yeah, when you click on it, it doesn't lead you to a Wikidata item. Instead, it leads you to a category. So we're not about to update some of the items on the list because they're not Wikidata items. Instead, they're leading to categories. Yeah, but then the Wikidata item actually is visible, like on the right-hand side, you can see the number of the item, but how can we have the Wikidata item on the list itself?
Oh, yeah, because I think by default, since this list is located on Commons, if an item has a Wikimedia Commons category, then it will redirect to the Commons category. I would have to dig a little in the source of the list to actually, yes, I'm going to add a separate column for the Wikidata item IDs. That is a very good idea. Yes, then we will have a separate column just for the Wikidata item ID. I'm going to fix it. That's a very good point that I missed.
Thank you so much, Alicia, and thank you, Jeffrey, for highlighting that. I'm just going to wrap up really quite briefly. What I'd like to say is we've got the link to the Etherpad. Everything you could ever want is on that Etherpad, including the tasks that we were given today. Even if you've not had time today, have a look at these before our next session, because we will recap and go over any questions you might have. And if you want to put any questions in the Jamboard or on the Etherpad before our next session, please do. Now, because this is session 1 of 3, it's even more important that we get your feedback so that we know what to do in our next session. So I'm going to share a link to our Mentimeter. You can fill that in just now as we're closing up, or short, but that we're giving you exactly what you need as Wikimedians for.
Oh, I think you disappeared for a moment, or is it just me?
Lucy, I think you're breaking. You're breaking, or your mic is breaking.
I'll put my camera off. Hi, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Excellent. So the Menti link is there. If you can work on the tasks that were given in the Etherpad before the next session, that would be brilliant. The next session will be on the 12th of October, and the dates are in the Etherpad. We would love to see you all there. While you're filling in the Mentimeter, I just want to say a big thank you to Bacola for organising and chairing the session today, to Jessica for all her help in the chat, especially with the translation. Our keyboards were on fire. To Eric for being so helpful in the chat and for answering so many questions and for his French skills. And of course to Alicia for doing the presentation today. We're really looking forward to the next 2 sessions. And I would ask if you would like to show your appreciation through a reaction or some silent applause, or pop your camera on or microphone on to do some cheering for the team today. So yeah. And of course, the best way you can show your appreciation is to give us feedback. So I will let you all have a moment there with the Mentimeter to pass on what you think. And we will see you all hopefully on the 12th of October. I'm going to risk putting my camera on again so that I can say goodbye properly. Is there anything else, Jessica, Eric, Alicia, Bacola, that we'd like to cover before people head off to enjoy the rest of their evenings or days?
Just want to say thank you guys for organizing this. Thanks everyone who showed up. It's always a pleasure to share what we have been doing. Hopefully you keep editing and I really hope to see you in about a month.
Yeah, be exciting. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Again.
thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Nanun, hi. Hello, Jessica. Hello, everyone.
Now, this is the point. You can just open your mics. This is the free, messy part.
The make
best part of
noise.
Connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Now.
To see everybody. And remember, please try to play around with the exercise, add any questions on the Etherpad. So next session, we can go even deeper and support you to be able to make this very practical. So give us feedback and give us some of your time doing the practical exercise. And thank you. Open your mics, say goodbye, say hello.
Hi, hello, goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
So good to see you all. Thank you, Gorana, for sharing your screen. Have good nights, days, afternoons, everyone.
Hello.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, Mohammed.